I'm Kelli Richards, and you're watching Real Visionaries. I was born in Los Angeles, grew up in Silicon Valley, when it was all orchards. My mom was a college professor and got a job up there, and so that's where I grew up. And it just so happens that the world grew up around me. Those orchards turned into Silicon Valley, and I actually wound up working at Apple on land that I used to pick apricots on, where I later, worked for Apple on the same land. So it just kept going like that. So as I launched the music focus at Apple, the world of digital music started springing up, and other companies came in around that, all of which sprung out of what happened at Apple. So it was kind of a Forrest Gump thing. One thing just kept leading to another. I was very passionate about music and technology from a young age, watching George Martin and the Beatles. And I just had a passion for wanting to go into being a record producer. That's what I thought I wanted to be, because I didn't know what else there was. And then wound up being at the right place at the right time. At the dawn of digital music and digital media, I just rode that wave at the tip of the spear as an innovator and a visionary. People call me a super connector, but what I do functionally is sort of a strategist and a business development executive, making deals happen and connecting people. And when I was at Apple, things were kind of rocky towards the end. The company was on the ropes until Steve came back and turned it all around. And he basically told me, we're not going to focus on music for a few years. So I left the company, went a mile down the road to my house and started my company, which is the All Access Group, and just kept going. Everything I did at Apple, I did on my own. And I had this big network by then, courtesy of Apple, and having been a talent producer for several decades. And so I just started working on new, emerging, disruptive digital media music tech startups, advising them, helping to strategize them, and creating partnerships for them, and doing artist relations and all of the things I did at Apple. And I still do that, but for companies that are funded startups all the way to Fortune 100 companies. But the other thing I do in my company is I act as a trusted advisor to individuals who've already had a lot of success and are looking to reinvent themselves in the next wave of where they're headed, all in the spirit of driving innovation and forward progression that's going to help people. The 5 people we wound up interviewing today have a lot in common. They're all innovators and entrepreneurs. They've all reinvented themselves many times. They all have a passion for social impact. We're fortunate to have Ty Roberts, a very forward-thinking leader in music tech from the early days.
Artists are releasing stems of audio. So they're taking their audio master tracks, breaking them into pieces, and letting the fans remix or make new music with them, which creates new copyrights and new ownership models. And what the rules of all that are brand new. And
Exactly.
That's a completely new era. And there are many new examples of this in the NFT space where people can go to a website, play with the audio, and mint something new, which they then own, I guess, in partnership with the artist.
Scott Page, a notable musician and saxophonist who also has been a technologist for 30 plus years, also been a colleague of mine for that amount of time. All of us were really on the cutting edge of the early interactive music tech, digital music scene.
I teach a thing called SPACE, which is called Story, Plan, Army, Conversion, Education. And it's basically a framework for startups to go by. Everything's about the story. Once the story is in place, then you get into the plan, and then I use lean startup principles. I'm a big lean startup guy, and think through all of that. Fail fast. Don't run out of resources, and test and validate everything. So I go through a series of processes, but really, it's really a combination right now. And what I love about what's happening, and we can get into this more,
and we will,
about the NFT space and finance and how people are financing things. It's really exciting. So it's kind of changed the model.
And then we were fortunate to get Jay Rosenzweig, who's a very successful entrepreneur and executive out of Canada, who does a lot with social activism and social impact, and does a lot to serve entrepreneurs and act as a mentor and be an advisor to scores of companies.
We developed this white paper called Diversity Recruitment. And diversity recruitment is a sophisticated approach to filling roles from an executive standpoint. It's not about compromises. What very often happens with recruiters, whether they're internal recruiters or external recruiters for companies, is they'll rely on more of a titles-based approach to finding individuals. You need a CFO, go on LinkedIn, look for CFOs.
Correct.
You're in the manufacturing sector, look for manufacturing people who are CFOs. If 90% of the senior roles are held by men, and you're only looking at a titles-based approach, you're inevitably going to recycle more and more men. So it might be that you have a superstar woman who has a little bit of lesser title, by definition, because they're also less paid, sadly.
Yes.
So you need to take a much more nuanced, sophisticated, deeper dive.
And then we had Jesse Dillon as a storyteller, film director, son of Bob Dylan, and also very much about social activism and social impact and serving people. And he also is building a new NFT Web3 company called Snow Crash. So we talked a lot about that and what he's doing with the major record labels and how he is helping them leverage their massive catalogs to the benefit of users that might want to remix some of those famous stems into new forms of intellectual property.
There's two kinds of fans. You know, one fan is looking for more interaction with people, with
Correct.
their artists,
Yes.
right? So they're going to get that, you know, and I think that's an important thing, which is community.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for other people that are like them, and they're going to take this token, and it's going to be a gateway to a collection of people who think the same way and want a little more interaction with the fan in one way, or with the artist in one way or another.
Yes.
And so that's the question is, how do you start those communities? And nobody really has an answer. There are a few that are really good, and you know, but they're not that many.
And finally, we were fortunate to get a little bit of time with Steve Aoki. And he doesn't need much of an introduction, but he is arguably the top DJ in the world, or one of them, especially in the electronic dance music space, and is a true multi-hyphenate Renaissance man who has a lot of irons in the fire, most notably as it relates to this space in the NFT world and Web3. He's driving a whole new realm, which he calls the Aoki Verse, of how communities come together and interact with each other, between artists and fans, between communities that collaborate with each other in a multiverse environment. And he's really up to some exciting things.
Aoki Verse is a guinea pig of what a social membership community should look like. Far greater, far more developed than a fan club. It has fan club elements for sure, so that you could participate in these real world experiences. But I've realized that's not just what they want. They want that. They want to, I mean, whoever is part of this is already in the NFT world.
We did talk to all of these guys about implications of a recession on the Web3 space. And not one of them really expressed any concerns about it. They all felt like this is here to stay and we'll ride it through. And in fact, it could be a piece of an offset to a recession in terms of it being an alternative market structure for people. So they were all very bullish and weren't concerned about a recession at all in terms of Web3 adoption. A lot of them said, make sure as you get involved and you start your business that you surround yourself with people that, or you've done your diligence on people that you're going to be working with, to know that they have a track record, they have history, they're real, and that your ventures are starting off on solid footing.